Welcome to my tutorial of Downwell, and this is on multiple platforms. I actually beat this on the PS5, which is going to be the version you're going to see here of the playthrough. And I spent around 15 and a half hours on the Switch version using a modded joystick, and I had some close attempts, but I never managed to beat that version as of yet. But once I switched over to the PS5 version and used an analog stick, I beat this version within 3.5 hours. So I probably have around 18 or 19 hours on the game total. I think I would have beaten it much sooner had I stopped using the modded joystick that I have. I should have just used an analog stick, as I think that gives you a lot more degrees of movement. It doesn't always make a difference for 2D games, but in this case, I found I had much more precision and accuracy with the analog stick. So that's what I ended up using, and basically, my successful run of this game, it took me maybe 12 and a half minutes. And I saw other videos online where successful runs were taking around 25 minutes. So mine was more at the pace of a speed run, though not quite, not a high-level speed run or anything, but it was more of a speed run pace. So that's just because of how I naturally play a lot of games. I'm very aggressive, and I hate waiting around for shit. So for me, the game flowed better when I just tried to play it really fast. So that's pretty much what I did. And that's just, just my play style. That's kind of how I play a lot of these kind of games. But there's different styles you can choose from. And basically, when you start off, it's not going to seem much better. But once you unlock the Armspin style, that's the one I'm going to recommend for trying to beat the game for the first time. It's not going to seem like it's the best style at first, because you start with 4 max health, but you can easily earn more max health with it. And also, it's just the best for survivability, because you're going to get more caves along the way that have heart pickups, which are basically will give you life back. And if you have full health, then it's going to fill another meter below your health bar, where you see 4/4 is my health currently. If you look below that, there's another meter with a few notches in it. It has 4 notches. If you have full health and you collect health in any form, you're going to fill that bottom meter. That means that if you collect health by getting it, between stages as your upgrade of choice, if you pick the apple icon that gives you 4 pieces of health, if you already have full health, you're going to increase your max health because you're going to fill those 4 slots. Each piece of health that you gather is going to go towards that bottom meter if you already have full health. Just keep that in mind. You can use that to your advantage even in shops, where you can buy healing items in the shops, but if you buy healing items when you already have full health, you're going to fill that meter, which is going to go towards increasing your permanent maximum health. Now in this game, you only have 1 life to beat the game, so survivability is going to be huge. So you can see I chose the Armspin style. And for the most part, what I'm trying to do is I do bounce off enemies, because every time you bounce off an enemy in this game, it does reset your guns. It pretty much reloads your guns for you. And your guns are what are going to keep you airborne. By shooting while airborne, it keeps you up in the air longer. So you can play a lot more carefully the more you can fire. So the idea is that I'll bounce off guys mainly to reset. And I also do kill a lot of guys earlier on in the game to collect more gems. So I will kill as I'm moving through, but I don't focus on combos. I'm not focusing on like high combos, which is when you bounce off a bunch of guys in the air without your feet touching the ground. If your feet touch the ground at any point, then the combo ends. So it's how many enemies can you kill before your feet touch a surface. That's how you get combos. Now, if you get really big ones, you can get some rewards, but I don't find it worthwhile to go for the bigger ones, and that's not going to be my play style, so I'm going to go over what I did. It's good to get the drone. You see, I chose the drone as one of the upgrades. That's one that you're going to want to eventually get, because it's very useful, especially for the final boss. The other upgrade you want to get before you get to the final boss is the laser upgrade, which not only makes it easier to see where you're aiming, which I didn't really need. I was used to seeing where my guy was going to land by playing the game so much, but it does help with that. But the main thing it does, it gives you full screen range to your shots. So when you get to the final boss, if you don't have that, the final boss is going to be much harder. So make sure you get the laser upgrade before you get to the final boss. And, the drone secondary to that. The drone is very good too, but the laser is more important, I would say. Because you're going to want to be up high on the screen when you fight the final boss. So here I got the youth upgrade. The youth upgrade is another good one because it gives you, it heals you by 1. And if you have full health, of course, it's going to add to that bottom meter I mentioned earlier, where if you fill that up 4 times, you're going to get a max health upgrade. And that doesn't reset between stages, so you can build that over time. See, I just got one. I got a heart icon when I already had full health. So therefore, I got one slot towards my maximum health upgrade. That's a big thing to understand in the game that took me a while to figure out. There's other things like charges that you can buy at shops, and you can earn more charges by doing combos. What charges are, that's how many gunshots you have before your character reloads. See, I got the apple. You always want to get that apple when it appears. It's rare that it appears. You always want to get it because not only will it heal you, but whatever's left over is going to go into that bottom slot. So it gives you 4 health. So let's say you're missing 1 piece of health. It'll give you 1, and then it'll put 3 in that max upgrade slot. So you want to get that heart or that apple. Now you see when you go in these caves, a lot of times what you're doing is picking up weapon pickups in those caves. A lot of times it's good to get them even if you don't need the weapon because it increases your charges, which is how many shots you have before you have to reload, which is essential for the final boss fight where you want to stay airborne a lot of the time. And especially the later stages are very hard if you don't have a high amount of bullets that you can fire. Now, depending on the weapon is going to depend how many shots you can fire before you have to reload. The more powerful weapons can only fire a few times before they have to reload. So it's gonna be based on that. But of course, if you get more charges, you can still fire them even more than you normally would. So it works for all the weapons, getting the charges up. See, it says you can buy charges or you can buy health. I don't really buy charges. I just get them through progression through the game and grabbing the stuff in the caves, pretty much. So I don't bother with that. Now, the big thing with this stage is going to be that if you fire on the skull enemies, if you fire on them but don't kill them, they're going to chase you aggressively, so you don't really want to activate them too much because anything that's red will damage you if you land on it. White enemies you can jump on and kill, but anything that's red you have to either avoid it or shoot it to death. And they usually take multiple shots to red enemies. Now the skulls start out as white enemies, but when you fire at them once or so, they will turn red and get very aggressive. So be aware. The candles on the side of the walls, if you bounce on those candles, will reset your guns as well. It's another way to stay airborne. So keep those candles on the wall in mind. Also, on the first few levels, the bats are the most dangerous enemies in the game, I've found. You always want to fall away from where they're perched at, unless you're going to land on top of them, because they will rush you immediately if they're perched up somewhere and you drop right beside them. You'll pretty much take damage immediately. So you want to keep a distance. Now, for this stage, the first stage wasn't much. It's just kind of a little tutorial stage, if you think about it. It doesn't really... it's getting you used to the game. But now on this stage is where you have to keep another thing mindful on this stage. There's 2 things to keep in mind. You can run out of air, which a lot of times I don't collect the bubbles all the time because, if you go through the stages fast enough, you don't need to. So don't worry about collecting all the bubbles, but the bubbles will replenish your air, which does run out on that timer that you see up there. So the idea here is, I am moving very fast, but the idea is with this stage, this world, it's like the water world, the second world. There's 3 levels in each world, so there's a total of 4 worlds. So for this second water world, one of the big things to keep in mind that helped me a lot is that whenever you pass a squid enemy, keep a mental note of where it was on the screen when you passed it. And the reason for that is because they're going to fall down very quickly if you didn't kill them. So the squids, you see that one on the right, see it's coming down? It's basically, they're always going to come down in a straight line from wherever they were positioned last. So for those squids, that's the main thing to learn in the second world, is that you want to keep an eye on those squids. You also got to watch out for those red enemies. They're very aggressive and will charge you aggressively, so a lot of times you want to kill them. I also try to kill the squids often because if you're not keeping track of them, they'll come back down and fall on you. But they're going to fall exactly where they were when you pass them. So just keep them in mind. That's the biggest trick of the second world to beat it easily, is just to keep a mental note. Now, as far as upgrades, I like stuff like getting gems, recharges gun boot, suck in nearby gems. These are both very good. Now, these suck in nearby gems is going to get you more money overall because you're going to suck in more gems from enemies instead of them not getting sucked into your body. You're not going to miss them as much. So that's beneficial. But the other benefit of it is it has a really good synergy with another upgrade called getting gem recharges gun boot. So if you get both of those, you're going to suck in gems that are going to also recharge your guns. They're going to work together. So you may want to get both of those at some point if you can acquire both. But I don't really focus on that. Either one is good by itself. I also like to get upgrades. I focus on upgrades that also do things like shooting a block causes a bullet to rise up. There's another one that when you get a gem, it causes a bullet to rise up. That doesn't sound that good, but it's an awesome offensive option, or defensive option, I should say, for a lot of the stages, because there's a lot of times where enemies are coming down on top of you while you're trying to move down. And if you have shit that's shooting upward, it's going to take those enemies out, especially on the final stage. So it's better than it seems. There's also a knife and fork for eating bodies to get health. That's one of the last things I'll get because I just don't find it that useful, because you have to eat a lot of dead bodies before you get a health gain. So I just don't see it very useful. So now I just bought just regular 1 HP health purchase, but I didn't have full health, so I didn't get a bonus towards my max health. But you see, I already have a 7 max health, so I've built it by 3 already. So for this stage, it's going to test your platforming precision. It's all about landing perfectly on these platforms to reset your guns while avoiding all these fireballs that are coming up and down on the screen. So you're going to want to land on those white things to reset your guns so you can stay airborne and just keep firing. Hopefully you have a lot of gun ammo by now that you can stay in the air for longer. But you want to get in those caves. Always go in those caves and collect the guns, even if you don't want the gun, because it's going to give you more charges, as I said, and it's worth it in the end. And eventually you will get used to even the guns you don't like. Like, I don't really like the heavier weapons like the shotgun and the laser, but I've gotten used to dealing with them because I can't stay in the air for as long with them. But they will also one-shot kill a lot of the harder enemies, like the red enemies that take multiple shots. So they have some value, but I still prefer like the machine gun or many other weapons but those. But see, here I think I get shooting dead bodies causes them to explode, and that's just an extra offensive option. When you kill shit and it explodes, it will take out some enemies around. So stuff like that does help a lot. So here I'm able to keep my health up pretty easily at this point because I'm going in those caves and getting those health. And I have a pretty high max health by this point. 7 is pretty good. It's not great, but it's enough, you know. So the main thing on this stage is testing your platforming skills as far as landing on these platforms to reset your guns and dodging the fireballs. Now, as long as you have, it helps to have some offensive options, like I said, shit that fires up, or like when you shoot the blocks, a bullet goes up, or when you get a gem, a bullet goes up. Those help immensely. And you can see I also have, I have the drone. I don't have the laser power up yet, which is really important for the final boss, but I think I do end up getting it. But the upgrades that it gives you is random, just like the layouts of the stages are random as well. It's all randomized. So you can't memorize it. But you do memorize how to move through the stages. There's definitely a rhythm. Each stage is a little different. The second stage is kind of like, mainly you're dealing with, trying to stay away from those guys throwing the bones and the skulls. You want to try to avoid those as much as possible. It's one of those games that's kind of hard to explain because you get a feel for it the more you play it. But I think the most important thing is the upgrade paths and stuff like that, which I'm trying to detail. And just using the Armspin style is going to be huge. Also, using an analog stick. Don't try using a joystick like I did. So, I mean, those things can save a lot of time. Because you do have to do this kind of shit for a pretty long time, of precise platforming. You don't have a lot of room for error in the game. It's a tough game. If I go through the hard mode, I will do another tutorial for that as well. I'm definitely going to beat the Switch version as well, but I'm going to use an analog stick this time. Just to get it on the kill list. Just an extra game to beat. But I was mainly working on that one anyway, so it'd be a good one to finish off. I got the PS5 version mainly because I was having difficulty recording on my AverMedia device. That game would glitch out the recordings pretty often. So there was a high risk of me not getting a recording of my completed run. So I said, fuck it, let me pick it up for PS5 and just use the PS5's internal recording feature. It was a lot more reliable. So you want to shoot a lot, as you see me doing, to keep yourself so you can make precise movements, on what you land on. by shooting a lot, it keeps you in the air longer, and that's why you want to get that bullet count up. So now we have a final shot before the final boss. I would say buy whatever HP upgrades you can get, or just replenish your HP, either way. Because, see, I don't think I didn't even have full health for the final boss when I went into it, but I was close. I had 6 out of 7 health pieces. So now I did get the laser, as you see, and that's going to be really important because that's going to give me full screen range to fire on the boss. So after you shoot at it a few times, the fight begins. And one of the main tricks with this fight, there's basically like 4 phases of the fight. The main trick is to try to stay in the upper areas. That's why I wanted you to have the laser, like I said, because I like to stay up in the top, like 3/4 of the screen as you see me up here. That means that when those triple fireballs diverge, I have a space that I can be in. So you want to be offset a little bit. Either be a little bit to the left of the center or a little bit to the right of the center. That allows me to dodge those fireballs, as you can see. I didn't dodge it successfully that time. I also have a time void that when I get damaged, it freezes time. That seemed to work pretty well for this boss fight. Normally, I don't get that. Something to consider. It did work well here. But you want to grab those gun modules as well as you're descending to get health back. So look for those. Also, at certain points, every time you damage the boss and go into the next phase, the screen is going to scroll down really fast and the ceiling is going to try to crush you. At that point, you need to just try to get down as fast as you can so you don't get crushed. But then it'll go into the next phase. I believe there's 4 phases before he dies. It goes through each of the worlds, which tests your platforming skill in each of the worlds as you're fighting the boss. So it's a cool mechanic. And once you get to the water area right here, you actually can run out of air, though I didn't even realize that was a thing. I wasn't paying attention to it at the time. But I guess you could run out of air, but I never did. I didn't worry about it. But you're going to have to manage all the enemies by firing a lot, so as long as they're underneath you, you can take them out. But the main thing is staying offset a little bit to either the right or the left of the center, as you see me doing, and up on the top 3/4 of the screen. That's the biggest tip. And keep firing. The reason for that is because, like I said, if you're offset from the center a little bit, you're going to be right in that gap where the fireballs kind of diverge. Though they do vary a little each time, so keep an eye on them, but it does make it easier to dodge the fireballs if you're offset on the center a little bit. So that's why I stay on that top 3/4 of the screen and a little bit off center. That's my main positioning strat. And then, of course, between phases, I have to move fast, obviously. Now we're in the final phase, which is where you have the final stage layout, where you have to bounce off of the things to recharge your guns. And, there's not really any big platforms to land on, only these little white ones. So you got to be good at being precise. Of course, we have a lot of ammo at this time because we built up our gun. So we can stay in the air for quite a while. And that's it. That's pretty much it. But it's quite a hard last boss. It actually took me several attempts. Though once I switched to an analog stick, I was getting pretty much to the final stage of the final boss pretty much on every attempt I made at the game. So it was just a matter of time. But I did die on the final boss several times before succeeding. Like I said, main things that I learned was, like I said, try to get the drone and the laser before you get to the final boss. I think that helps a lot. The extra firepower pretty much doubles your firepower that you're going to hit on the boss. And it gives you the full range of the screen so you can stay up at the top of the screen. And then, of course, you want to stay on the top 3/4 of the screen, as I said. And you want to stay a little bit off center and just keep firing. A little bit off center, either left or right, so that you're in the gaps of the fireballs when they diverge. Because there's a triple shot that he fires that's really fucking close together if you're fighting him low on the screen. So the best way I found is to be up on the topper of the upper part of the screen and just be off to the side a little bit. And if you maintain that position, a lot of the rest kind of takes care of itself, I found. But you do want to try to collect the health upgrades too. And depending on your luck, you'll get more health drops on some attempts than you will on others. So you may not get many or you may get a lot. It just depends. It seems to be random as well. I'm trying to think if there's anything that I missed. I think I pretty much covered everything. The main things that I wanted to cover is like I said, the upgrade path, which for me is mainly centered around like offensive and defensive shit, like having bullets shoot up when you shoot a block, collecting a gem to shoot a bullet upwards. I like those a lot. Those are two that I often go for. Always grab the apple when it appears. It's always beneficial because it can increase your max health depending how close you are to full health. Even if it doesn't do that, it will at least fill you up, back to most of your health, which is important because you want to stay alive. From the shops, you want to buy you definitely want to buy like health upgrades when you can, like not even upgrades, just health replenishments, because especially try to buy them if you're at full health. Try to maintain full health and buy them then, so you can build your max health meter and work towards getting a higher max health. One last thing that I did forget to mention, the shops. There is an upgrade between stages that you're offered to where you get a 10% discount at shops, but more important than that, it also makes it so that shops always appear at the beginning of a stage. I didn't realize this until very late. You want to get that upgrade when it appears, because it may not appear again, and it's very, very important, because it means that you're going to get the shop at the beginning of each stage. Whereas when you pick the Armspin style, it makes it so that shops are very rare. That's one of the downsides of it. But if you get that, it fixes the problem, because it makes it so that there's a shop at the beginning of each stage. And that's really important for buying your health upgrades and things like that. So you want that. Usually if there's ever an apple, though, that's pretty much the main thing to always get. That's like priority over everything. Secondary to that would be the shop one. And then after that, everything else is kind of optional, but I like to go for defensive and offensive stuff, like I said, with the blocks. And, of course, before you get to the final boss, make sure you get the drone and the laser sight. That's kind of just a basic overview of my strats. Like I said, I try not to fight too much when I play. That's why I'm moving so fast. I'm not going for combos and shit, really. I'll kill stuff to reset my guns, and I kill it to get some extra gems. But I'm not focusing on trying to combo a bunch of shit. I'm trying to drop down as fast as I can for the most part. So if you have any questions, let me know, and thanks for watching.